Having spent a good amount of time this past week playing Koei Tecmo's new project, Nioh, I thought I'd do a quick rundown of the things we've learned about the game. If you didn't get to check out the alpha demo of this intriguing new PS4 exclusive, stay tuned as there will most likely be a beta in the not too distant future. Story and setting. Not too much is currently known about the story. The game takes place in feudal Japan in the 1600s, and you play a white-skinned, white-haired protagonist named William, who looks strikingly similar to Geralt of Rivia, the Witcher. In fact, he looks so similar that it's bordering copyright infringement. Unfortunately, there was no option for character customization, so that most likely won't be in the full version of the game. The land seems to be overrun with samurai, ninja, and oni, demons. Why and how exactly they got there is a mystery, but pieces of the puzzle are left behind on corpses of fallen soldiers. If any of you have played Hunted: The Demon's Forge, it works similarly by telling a bit of the person's story via narration when you loot their bodies. There are also very lore-heavy item descriptions for nearly every weapon and armor, helping to further unravel the plot for those paying attention. I get the feeling the story and lore will be cryptic and left for the player to discover, or not, similar to the way Dark Souls handles this aspect of their game. Design. The game is subdivided into missions, some of which the player must complete to advance the game. These missions have level recommendations, but meeting them is not required. The game itself is quite difficult, so I highly suggest you follow the recommendations of the game. Because of the limited amount of missions available in the alpha, it remains to be seen just how linear Nioh is. We won't know how many paths there are to take until release, but I think it's fair to expect a mostly linear experience with a few side missions here and there. Level design in the alpha was dark, gritty, and downright brutal. Locations look completely destroyed by war, oni, and God knows whatever else is out there. Buildings were aflame, there were corpses strewn about the place, and a general feeling of hopelessness saturated the environment, making you feel like that even if you passed the area you were in, there were worse things yet to come. Each mission has a shrine or two that acts as a checkpoint where the player can sell items, change guardian spirits, purchase area bonuses, and summon another player to help them. Just like Dark Souls, resting at these shrines replenishes your health and healing items, and also respawns enemies in the level. There are also shortcuts that, once unlocked, allow the player to bypass a chunk of the mission. Again, this is very similar to Dark Souls. Each mission also ended with a boss, and these bosses are very challenging and will definitely test the patience and skill of the player. They are easily on par with Dark Souls in terms of difficulty, and they will take players many attempts to learn their patterns and defeat them. You also get that sense of accomplishment for defeating them, and it is one of the best feelings in gaming. They also drop random loot that can vary in quality, making farming them worthwhile, which you can do by helping other players in their worlds. The loot system is mostly random and adds an interesting element to the Bloodborne-esque gameplay. There is fixed loot on certain corpses throughout the game, but for the most part it's completely random. Not only are drops randomized, but the stat bonuses on weapons and armor are as well. Weapons and armors have qualities from common, uncommon, rare, and one of a kind. The higher quality of the item, the more bonuses it possesses, and usually it has higher damage or protection. Because weapons and armor have levels like Destiny, this is not always the case, and often you will find a level 20 common katana that does more damage than a level 12 one of a kind. You'll have to farm quite a bit to find the perfect weapon that possesses the bonuses you desire, and some people will really enjoy that. Gameplay. The gameplay in Nioh is somewhere between Bloodborne and Ninja Gaiden in terms of speed, and frankly, you're either going to love it or hate it. I was not a huge fan of it at first, but the more I played, and the more I learned, the more it grew on me to the point where I was hopelessly addicted. The game has a leveling system that is identical to Dark Souls, in that you kill enemies to acquire Amrita, experience, and then you use that at shrines to invest in one of 8 stats. Each stat does something different, and they all have their uses. If you die while on a mission, you leave your Amrita on the ground where you died, and it is guarded by your guardian spirit until you return to claim it. A unique aspect of the game is the guardian spirits that the player can choose from that provide passive and active bonuses. Each one has an element, fire, wind, water, lightning, earth, etc. associated with it, and each one has very different benefits. Players can also activate their guardian spirit when their gauge in the upper left-hand corner is filled and flashing, and this will allow them to unleash devastating attacks for a short time. This gives players a tool to get past very difficult encounters or mini-bosses, of which there were many in the demo. When you die, this spirit protects your Amrita until you return, but you lose the passive benefits and ability to call upon it in battle until you reclaim it. It is also possible to retrieve it at any shrine for the cost of the Amrita laying where you last died, but if this is a large quantity, it may not be worth it. Combat is fast and fluid like Bloodborne, only faster. Players can chain combos, learn new combos, and change to high, mid, or low stances with each weapon type, providing a good amount of variety to each weapon. This is a good thing too, because there are only a few types of weapons in the game: katanas, spears, axes, hammers, and bows. Players will have to learn to manage their ki, stamina, diligently, perhaps even more so than in Souls games, because mistakes are punished severely. Enemies deal massive damage from even the simplest attacks, healing items are scarce, and being outnumbered more often than not means certain death. There are skill trees in the game for each weapon type that allow for new combos and moves, as well as Nioh magic and ninjutsu skill lines. Magic allows for a small selection of spells, mostly weapon buffs, and ninjutsu allows for the use of some projectiles that deal significant damage. Putting points into these stats allow for stronger magic and ninjutsu abilities. You can also unlock blocking, parrying, and riposting during combat. You will learn when and where to use these as you play the game. Multiplayer. Nioh, thankfully, does feature cooperative multiplayer online. You can summon a player into your world at any shrine by using an Ochoko. It is a consumable item similar to an Ember or Humanity from Dark Souls. However, it is only consumed if a player arrives. Players can also summon you to help them if you use the matchmaking option on any mission in the overview screen. We do not yet know if you can PvP other players, but we do know that if you touch the bloody mounds of dead players in your game world, you can duel their avatars for experience, loot, and a chance to acquire an Ochoko. Unfortunately, the multiplayer system didn't seem to work very well. I tried to summon players repeatedly with almost no luck. I did finally manage to get one player to come help me near the end of the first mission, but the lag was so bad with him in my game that I could hardly move. That's not an exaggeration. And the couple of times I was summoned, the lag, although better, was still bad enough that things were skipping across the screen, and I died twice to things that hit me before I had even realized what was happening. They have a long way to go in this area if the multiplayer is going to be even remotely functional before release. Summary. Nioh takes many things from Dark Souls and Bloodborne and mixes them in with Ninja Gaiden, delivering a game that has serious potential and may expand past the niche market it was originally intended for. If Team Ninja can polish up the game a bit, deliver more of what we saw in the alpha, and get the multiplayer to function even just the majority of the time, I can see this game come flying into the market that Dark Souls used to dominate uncontested. This game gives me hope that developers other than From Software can deliver the type of high-quality, addictive RPG that only Souls could bring us before. I cannot wait to see more.